usually picture a heist as the ultimate cheat code for greed, a crew of mastermind criminals bypassing heavy security to walk away rich. Think of Vincenzo in 1911, casually lifting the Mona Lisa off a museum wall and stuffing it under his smock. Or the impeccably planned Antwerp Diamond Heist, where thieves spent years mapping out the vaults of this jewelry building for a massive commercial payout. Society writes these off as simple crimes of self-enrichment, defining the robbers strictly by their desire for extreme wealth. So what drives a person to execute a highly dangerous, coordinated raid when the ultimate prize isn't cash, but justice? Some of the most audacious heists in history were actually carried out by abolitionists, outlaws, and war veterans. They each looked at their communities and realized peaceful protests were useless against an inherently rigged, oppressive regime. Fixing the system meant stealing the literal tools of power. Their actions sit right on the line between criminal robbery and righteous rebellion, turning a traditional heist into ideological warfare. Take John Brown in 1859. He was an abolitionist who hatched a plan to end slavery by inciting a massive armed uprising across the South. To arm that uprising, he needed military-grade firepower. He targeted the federal armory down there at Harper's Ferry, a complex holding over 100,000 rifles and muskets. His friend, Frederick Douglass, pleaded with him to abandon the plot, warning that attacking a federal arsenal was a complete suicide mission. Brown ignored him. On October 16th, he and his men cut the town's telegraph lines, rushed the armory, and took the commanding officer hostage. The tactical breach worked perfectly, but the massive army of supporters Brown anticipated would arrive to wield those stolen weapons never materialized. Instead, local militias and a detachment of U.S. Marines led by Robert E. Lee quickly surrounded the building, turning the heist into a bloody, desperate shootout at the local fire engine house. Brown was captured and executed, but his brazen raid forced the nation's political tensions to a breaking point, actively accelerating the onset of the Civil War. A few years after the Civil War ended, a Lumbee Native American named Henry Berry Lowry took a different approach in the swamps of North Carolina. He ran a gang that operated on localized Robin Hood rules. They stole directly from the wealthy plantation owners who terrorized his people and redistributed those supplies to the poor. Local elites grew so frustrated with his constant successful raids that the government stepped in, placing a massive bounty on Lowry's head to crush his operation once and for all. To understand the extreme threat level he faced, look at this chart tracking the bounty's modern value. The government offered $12,000 in 1872 currency, which rapidly scales up to roughly a $300,000 equivalent today. Lowry's gang responded to this pressure with sheer audacity. In 1872, they boldly broke into the Pope and McLeod store in Lumberton and grabbed $22,000 in cash. And then he vanished. The bounty was never collected, and Lowry simply walked away from history with the massive score, securing an untouchable legend. Fast forward to 1946 in Athens, Tennessee. A group of returning World War II veterans arrived home to find their town controlled by a corrupt, tyrannical sheriff. On election day, the sheriff's deputies physically beat voters, grabbed the ballot boxes, and locked themselves inside the heavily fortified county jail to rig the count. The veterans realized that asking nicely for their democracy back was impossible. Peaceful processes had failed, leaving an armed heist as their only remaining option to restore order. They marched straight to the local National Guard armory, tricked the guard into opening the doors, and completely raided the armory for military rifles and Thompson submachine guns. The veterans carried their new arsenal back to the jail, unleashing a storm of bullets and chucking bundles of dynamite against the heavy brick walls to breach the fortification. The extreme violence worked. The corrupt deputies surrendered the stolen ballots, the veterans reclaimed their town's democracy, and their actions were entirely vindicated by the public. Look at the vastly different ways history and the law handled these three illegal raids against federal and state targets. John Brown paid with his life, securing a massive, delayed ideological victory only after his execution. Henry Berry Lowry evaded the entire legal system, securing both immense wealth and long-term safety for his community. But the ultimate legal irony belongs to the veterans in Athens. Despite committing literal federal crimes by raiding an armory and bombing a county jail, not a single one of them was ever charged. Society usually punishes those who decide the rules don't apply to them, but history tends to forgive those who steal power back from broken, oppressive systems. If you enjoyed these stories, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let us know down in the comments what crazy historical events you want us to cover next. See you in the next one.